The Leganto Customer Focus Group was formed in October 2018 to work together with Ex Libris to produce an out-of-the-box analytics dashboard for librarians. This group has been working on user stories from the community based on institutional reporting requirements of library staff in operational, managerial, or strategic capacities. I'd like to thank everyone in the group for the many hours they've contributed, especially Chris Jones from the University of Sheffield and Gal Duron, Leganto Product Manager, for coordinating the work. Members involved in the focus group have included Alex Forrest from the University of Edinburgh. Alex is an Igloo member and also a member of the Analytics Working Group. Andrew Butterworth, Imperial College London. Jessie is also an Analytics Working Group member. Lorraine Ackroyd from University of Western Australia, so really good to have two Australians on the group. Becky Smith from Memorial University is also an Analytics Working Group member, and Scott Carlisle from Northeastern University. Becky and Scott are both Aluna members, so it's been a truly international group. And I'd like to introduce Jessie. Jessie Donaghey is a Digital Services Librarian at Bond University. Jessie is interested in exploring ways to enhance student learning within the academic environment and discovering new methods to engage customers with library services. In January this year, Bond University launched Leganto university-wide. A key goal of Jessie's since the launch has been to identify ways analytics can support library staff, from completing day-to-day tasks to evaluating strategic priorities. In addition to being part of the Leganto Librarian Analytics Dashboard Focus Group, Jessie is also a member of the Analytics Working Group. So I'd now like to hand over to Jessie to take us forward. Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you very much, Sue. Hello, everyone, and thanks for attending this afternoon. So the Leganto Librarian Analytics Dashboard Focus Group is quite the mouthful, but we first met as a group at the beginning of the year to begin work on the dashboard. As Sue read out earlier, each of the members in this focus group, all the members are from different regions, and Lorraine Ackroyd and myself were both representatives from the APAC region. So it's been great to work with so many different librarians across the world. Before we get to the demonstration of the dashboard, I'll provide a brief summary of what the aims of the group were and how we went about creating the dashboard, as well as some of the challenges that popped up along the way. So this was the mandate given to the group. The reports that we were aiming to create were not limited to just being created from the Leganto analytics subject area, such as the student usage or the instructor usage, but we could actually make them from the other subject areas in analytics. It's just that the primary focus of the dashboard was to be of use and benefit to Leganto customers. So these were the key steps we took to create the dashboard. We had our own existing reports, and in some cases we were able to reuse these in the dashboard. We also hunted through the community reports for anything that looked relevant and that we could reuse. And Ex Libris also provided some new usage reports which have been incorporated into the dashboard. And finally, we sent out a survey to the community in order to find out exactly what they would like to see in the dashboard. And this was really a key component to the reports we ended up creating. So the survey really asked who the report was for, so the librarian role involved, what exactly the reports should contain, what was being done with the report, its regularity of use. Was it something that would be required daily or weekly or a bit longer, like monthly or annually? And then how critical was the requirement for this report? So all this gave us a good understanding of what exactly we should create and our expectations of who would use it and how frequently it would be used. So as mentioned in the previous slide, we sent out the survey to the community and we got 36 responses. So we referred to these as user stories. So when you look at the dashboard, you'll see the term user story used quite a bit. So when we reviewed the requirements as described in the user stories, it really highlighted to us how institutions use Leganto so differently. So for example, course year fields could be over multiple years. Searchable IDs are used for faculty information in some cases or additional course codes in other institutions. So many of the reports created as a result may not necessarily be classified as general purpose, but we have tried to provide librarians with as much control as possible through the use of prompts. So before you run the report itself, you can pick and choose what filters you want to apply to make sure that it will be of use to you. And even if the original aim of the report itself may not necessarily sound like something that's applicable to you, after you run it, the data that is generated, you could actually find it might be useful in a different way than it was originally intended. So do keep on that in mind when you do look through the dashboard. So part of the scope of the focus group was to highlight issues or areas where there is lack of data or functionality in analytics. So I've just listed here some of the gaps and challenges we found. But also due to the monthly releases, some of these were able to be overcome, such as the ability to report on lists associated with multiple courses. And one of the most commonly requested type of report from the user stories that we weren't able to deliver was for the ability to determine processing time on lists or citations. And then also the analytics working group had also documented some additional gaps in their evidence documents, so we referred to these as well. One of the challenges we did experience as a group was a delay in the syncing of regional data centres. So when you're working on I guess a shared report in the community area, if one person was working on a report in a different region to myself, I'd have to wait until Friday for it to be synced, and then I would be able to see the changes and the work that had been done. But we did get around this by sharing screenshots or the XML outputs if we wanted to create the reports ourselves before the syncing had been finished at the end of the week. Okay, so it's time now for me to jump into analytics and give you a glimpse of the dashboard. Once I start showing the dashboard and the various reports within it, you may feel a bit of information overload. So what I would recommend is to get yourself ready to jot down any reports that are of particular interest to you or you think might be relevant to your institution. So you can write down the page that it's on and then the report title, and hopefully this will give you some information that you can use to navigate back to it at a later time. So I also hope that I do the focus group justice in describing and demonstrating the dashboard, because such a great amount of time and effort has gone into creating it, and we always had the benefit to the community as our primary goal. And I won't try to cover all the report in details or run them all in great depth, but what I'll try to do is just give a brief description of the reports and their purpose and how they're grouped on the page. And I might run a few of them to give you examples of what the outputs are and to provide a bit more context. So a live demonstration in analytics is probably a bit risky, so please keep your fingers crossed that we don't see the timeout message or the spinning wheel of doom. All right, I'll just close down the presentation. And hopefully everyone's seeing Alma. And I'll jump into analytics. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the catalogue. So for those of you who are familiar with analytics, you can look at the folder structure on the left-hand side and see where the dashboard is actually located in the community area. And on my slides, I put the direct location that you can follow as well. So at the moment it's still all under construction, and I'm going to show you one of our most recent versions, but just keep in mind it's not entirely finished yet. Okay, so this is version 2019 April 25 that I'm going to show you. All right, so on the landing page here, we have added the details of the user stories, which are those survey responses. As I go through each of the pages, you'll see the user stories are numbered, but they're not in sequential order. The number refers to where I guess they came in who responded to the survey first, or that kind of thing. So they're not in any sort of order in the dashboard itself. So at a later date, we'll probably remove these references to user story and just keep the title of the report. But for now, it's kind of helping us understand the connection between the response and what was required by the person who answered the survey, and then where it actually lives within the dashboard. So the right-hand panel here is just a report on the outcomes of the focus group. And that's there for everyone to read and get a little bit of better understanding of how we went about creating the dashboard. At the bottom of the page here on the right, we have a feedback area. So you can use this anytime, immediately after the session today or at a later date. And we do really encourage your feedback and appreciate it. All right, so I'll jump into our first real page of reports, and that's the citations page. This primarily focuses on providing an overview of the characteristics of citations. So for example, in the right-hand panel there, it shows the breakdown of citations by material type and by processing department if you had multiple. We've just got one here, so it's just one chart. In the left-hand side here, we have some other analyses that focus on, the top one is about particular tags used on citations. Next one's about finding the high demand citations, so where they're used in multiple lists. Then we have newly created citations. So here you can choose a date range and find citations created within that date. Maybe you want to keep an eye on all those that have been created in the last week and want to action those. Then user story 11 here focuses on citations, their tags, and their statuses. At the very bottom here, we have two reports that look at trends in citations. So the average number of citations per section is the first one. And then the last one here is the average publication date for the citation. So you might use this kind of report to communicate to faculties or review the average age of citations by, say, academic department and decide whether that aligns with your expectations or not. Okay, next is the usage page. So as a visual introduction to the usage page, we added in a chart at the top here that provides a general sense of student activity in Leganto for a specific course year. So at Bond, we've only had it since late 2018, so we only have 2 years to choose from. And here you can see, I guess, our usage for the current year. So we tried to do some visual charts on the pages at the top of the pages where relevant, just to give you, I guess, a nice visual introduction to that particular page. The other analyses on this page, we have the Leganto student usage report, which shows how student activity with a particular list or the engagement with a particular list or course in a visual way. So I'll show you an example of that. I'm just going to choose a particular course here. I'm just going to filter it by that one subject. So this is the output of the report. This first chart here shows me that usage has increased over the course of having a reading list for this particular subject. So it's a bit, the bar charts are a bit out of order, but the middle one is the first time we had this list for the subject. And then that was the furthest chart, bar chart is the second term we had the list available for the subject. And then the first one is actually our current semester. So it's we're very early in semester still, so we would expect to see a lot more usage as the semester progresses on that one. So just by selecting that particular subject, I was able to generate these other visual representations as well. And at the bottom is just in table form, this information. So back on the usage page, the usage by reading list and by school have similar outputs to each other, but just have slightly different focuses. So they're both in table form. And then at the last 3 reports here focus on usage at the citation level. So for example, you could report on citation usage for a particular course or academic department, or you may want to see usage for all citations with a particular tag or material type. Possibly you would want to find out whether your prescribed book chapter citations are being used. So you could use the bottom report for that. The citation priority is actually your tags. So for us, our prescribed tag we could filter to, and then material type, say book chapter, and see the usage for all of those particular citations. Okay, so onto the public notes and tags page, which this page looks at reporting on citations with particular tags or public notes. So the first one here, the report presence of a note. This would allow you to analyse the public notes on citations. So here you could identify trends or common themes in what instructors are communicating to students about particular citations. The last report here, citation detail by library tag for digitisation requests. This would let you check whether prescribed resources have digitisations. So possibly you could use this information to determine whether instead of digitising a lot of print material, should you maybe look at whether purchasing an e-version would be a better means to providing that resource to students instead. So all these small filters could actually end up providing a very detailed and powerful report. Okay, on the to follow-up page, this is really meant to show reports which indicate some sort of action is still required on lists or citations. The bar chart at the top is a visual representation on how the progress of citation completion is happening for the chosen term or year. So we've got our current term and course year displaying, and there's still a little bit of incomplete citations to be done. The next report here, incomplete reading list sent to library. This allows, using all the different prompts here, allows you to find lists sent to the library from a particular date onwards and that are not yet complete. So you can choose to refine by a particular assignee. Say you're a librarian and you want to find all the lists that are assigned to you and whether or not you still have some work to do. Or maybe you want to find all the lists under a particular academic department and see how many citations are yet to be completed. So there's a few different ways to filter this report. Or maybe you just want to see everything that has been sent after a particular date. So for example, could choose academic department here and filter the report. What we wanted to do also was to provide visual representation, so at a quick glance you would know whether there was work to be done, was it a lot or was it a little, but unfortunately the formula's not quite working at the moment, so we're still looking into it. But basically, if there were lists that still had citations incomplete, we were aiming to have it highlighted in red, and then the percentage of citations that were complete, so you get an indication of how much left there was to do. Or in the case of where there aren't any citations incomplete, but the list itself is incomplete, would be highlighted in green, and then you could just know that all I need to do was to complete the list itself. So hopefully we'll get that one working. The two reports at the bottom of the page allow you to identify whether books or articles which aren't part of the library collection are on lists. So this would allow you to find resources which may require purchasing or digitising or requesting in some other method. Okay. On the copyright page, there's nothing here yet. We did have a couple of user stories that wanted some specific reports based on copyright information, which included student interaction or engagement on citations, but it's not yet able to be created in analytics. So we're just putting this here as a placeholder until potential day when we can create this kind of report. So the impact analyses page, these are the newly created reports from Ex Libris, and these reports could be used to maybe help you answer the question, what kind of lists do students really engage with? So the first chart at the top here, number of citations in reading lists, gives an indication of which kinds of lists see more engagement based on the number of citations in those lists. So for example, here at Bond, we would say that 5 to 10 lists with 5 to 10 citations have higher engagement. So the red line is the activity score. So ours have more engagement than lists with other levels of citations. Underneath that one, we have two other charts. There's the citations with public notes. So once again, this lists all the citations whether they have a public note, yes or no they don't, and then what level of engagement or activity score is on those citations. So in our example, we would say citations that have public notes do have higher engagement. So you could extract from that when instructors describe to students why they should use this resource, it resulted in better engagement. The next one to the right of that is citations with public tags. So this chart shows, in our instance, what kind of citation or tags on citations result in higher engagement by students. At the moment, it says the tags that have both class preparation and prescribed resource on it have a higher level of engagement, but in fact it's only 5 citations in total. So maybe just the next one along, which is prescribed resource, has a fairly high level of engagement and a lot of citations that meet that requirement. So possibly the prescribed resource is a better indication of which kinds of citations have better engagement. Okay, so then to the right, we have a couple of tables. And in these you can see some more specific information about which citations have usage, which is the top report here, so the exact citations. And then the one underneath that is which exact lists have high usage as well. So you've got the reading list ID there if you wanted to check that one in Alma. So ours at the moment are showing more than 100%, and these I think are because of the way we were using course code information in previous semesters. So if I looked at these, I think they're from last year. The third report here, it hasn't worked for me, and I think that's because of the filter is specific to a different data center. But basically this report was meant to show specific library resources which have high usage. So hopefully we will be able to do something about that for the APAC region. And then the last reports down here, where are they? Go. So the second half of the page details different characteristics of lists. So we've got the type of publication status on the list, and then that's split by academic departments. And then down below we have all the individual lists which make up those pie charts in the table. So something that I've thought about doing is editing or saving these kinds of reports in our institutional area and analytics, and then putting additional filters on them. Maybe you want to see these trends just from 2019, or just from a particular term, or maybe even an academic department. The Instructor Engagement page just focuses on the ability for librarians to retrieve lists by particular instructors or collaborators, or owners, sorry. So here you have various prompts to be able to retrieve that. Okay, the user stories page is basically provides the complete detail of all the different user stories that we received, and some further description about what we created or what was required, as well as some of the newer queries that came through to the group and whether or not we've been able to create those, and some of the original user stories as well that we weren't able to create from analytics. So we're just keeping in mind that people may have submitted a survey response but can't see their report anywhere in the dashboard. So we have been communicating with the individuals, but just for everyone's benefit, we've put in here, you know, what we were able to do and what we weren't. On the full data page, this hasn't been created yet, but possibly here we would have a big data dump of all Leganto or course-related information, which may be of use to people who want to export it and then manipulate it in other tools as required. And then the course and list overview page is probably fairly self-explanatory based on the title, but I'll just point out on this page we do have the report which is meant to show courses without reading lists. So there has been some discussion on the list about this particular report because it can include courses with lists, but those lists have 0 citations on them. So the discussion's been around whether or not it should actually be considered as a course without a reading list when the only factor is that it doesn't have any citations on the list. So we're still in discussion and are investigating that one for you all. Okay, so I've come to the end of what I wanted to demonstrate. I hope I haven't rushed through that too quickly. I can go back and look at reports if there's anything in particular you wanted to see again. But as you can see, the group still has some work to do, but the dashboard is there and it's ready for anyone that is eager to check it out, and also to provide feedback. That would be fantastic as well. We do see this as, I guess, it's not going to be a stagnant dashboard. So we do want to be able to respond to feedback from the community, because that's the purpose of this dashboard, is it to be of benefit and of use to the customer community. So yeah, thank you for all listening, and I hope that the dashboard demonstration has sparked your interest, and that the work of the focus group, what we've done for you, is of use to you and your institution.
Thanks, Jessie. That's really impressive. Would you be able to take a few questions?
Yes, that'd be good.
Yeah. So if people have questions, could you put them into the chat? I'm seeing a comment there from Kale. Looks amazing. Great job. We are very impressed. Thank you. Huge amount of work. Well done. So that's great to see the appreciation there already.
I'll pass that on to the team as well.
Yes, and it would be, and Tamar's been online. Thank you, Tamar. She says, thank you, very impressive. So if anyone does have a question that they would like to type into the chat, or anything that you would like Jessie to, maybe any of the reports that you would like just to see a bit more of. Sorry.
There was a question.
Yeah, is the dashboard meant to be moved to Alma?
Actually, I'm not quite sure of that, if it's going to live in the community zone or not. It might stay in that community folder area if we wanted to ensure we had the ability to make sure the reports were useful and up to date. But at the same time, it would be good that it was just located in that Alma area, so you didn't have to navigate through the many folders of the community area. So yeah, I'll definitely find out.
Okay. Any more questions? I think you've stunned everyone, Jessie.
Not overloaded everyone.
No. It's really, really nice. Okay, so hopefully we've encouraged you to go away and have a play, and then we'll look forward to receiving some feedback from you. Oh, a question.
Great.
Yes, yes, Deirdre. Do we make our own copy?
Yes, that's a good question. Getting used to using reports or doing anything in the community area and analytics can be tricky, but basically you can go in there right now and run it as it is in the community area. However, if you wanted to change the way a report looks or the filters used, you then have to save a copy either in your personal analytics folder or in your institution's analytics folder. So there might be some reports that you would find better filters for. As I mentioned, like in that impact analysis report by Ex Libris, you might want to be really specific about what data is being pulled into those charts. So you definitely have to save a copy of that somewhere in your folders. And question from Kale, quick question. Yes, so use that version. So that's our most up-to-date version. Just don't go saving any more versions into that folder at the moment. So you can take that version away and plonk it in your folder. Yeah, it's a funny thing to get used to. It's hard to delete something in the community area, so I don't think you need to be afraid about accidentally deleting something. If you do make a change, that's fine. We have other versions that we can refer back to, or if it's quite obvious, we'll be able to make that change because we have, I guess, a good understanding of what the reports should do and what the requirements were. So don't be afraid to go in there and have a look and add filters. Very good.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks, Jessie, and thanks everyone for joining us. The session has been recorded and we will make the recording available afterwards.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you, Sue.